Hey, School Bus here. So, I want to do a quick video today to convey to you some knowledge that I ran into on Fisherman's Bay, having played the Heavy Zone for the first time in many months. And during the game, and I believe this might have been something that was possibly live streamed, I don't remember for certain now, it's been a few weeks, but I got very frustrated at the fact that playing this position in the city, I would get lit, and I felt like the enemy always knew where I was at when I was behind these buildings, or I would pull up behind these bushes, because it just seemed like the heavy tanks that were roughly where I have that Mauschken parked, they just would always see me, and typically behind a bush of this size at that distance I would not expect to be spotted. And you can see right now with the enemy tank at 218 meters, I am no longer visible. But during the game in question, the tanks were just a couple meters closer. And at that intersection that's down there, which is probably, I'm going to estimate, about 190 meters, I would have expected these bushes here to protect me. And I especially would have imagined these bushes to protect me if I was double bushed behind them, or said differently, if I was far enough behind them that they were opaque. So let's jump here to another view of this. So here I am approaching this location, and there are two lines of bushes. One, the one you previously saw at that intersection, and then there's this other line of bushes closer to the church. So I move up here, and as soon as these bushes go transparent, I suddenly get lit, which means even though those bushes in front of me should be operating in a rather opaque state, they don't seem to be as effective as the average bush. And I suspect that Wargaming decided to make these bushes this way here because otherwise this position tended to be a little bit OP. We know there are different camouflage values of bushes, but this one struck me as being very notably useless at actually being able to obscure me, and it threw me off, and it was kind of frustrating. So don't know if any of you heavy tankers playing the city have experienced this, but it was a bit counter to my normal intuition of how I'd be able to play this position. I would normally think that I could move up just like I am here, and as long as I didn't fire, I would expect to be, with an enemy tank at that distance, I would expect to be pretty close to invisible. Well, actually, I would be invisible, and I would not get lit. But as you saw in the previous segment there, you have to, if I'm going to be moving behind the bush, the enemy tank needed to be 212, 213 or so meters away. And that number will vary depending on the camouflage of the tank versus the vision strength of the other tank. But interesting nonetheless. Now, toward the end of when I was done with this, I decided to have some fun and just destroy the tanks. And I decided it'd be fun to have the German tank shove the Russian tank into the water. What you were going to find here is a mechanic in the game that I did not previously know existed. Watch the resistive force of pushing the T-10 into the water. I believe to avoid this being done in-game and used as an offensive technique, Wargaming chose to add an invisible wall along this street and prevent the exact behavior that you are seeing here from me. So I thought at first, well, maybe it was something to do with going alongside. But notice here there's resistance, and then finally the tank gets pushed up. And even further to the apparent resistive force, you actually see sparks coming off the tracks. So the game is truly treating it as a wall. And now that we have the tank up there, well, now it's just nicely perched and stuck. So feel free to amuse your friends and your enemies, and feel free to try pushing a tank into this position in live play. That would be impressive. And if you do it, send me the replay. That'd be awesome. So anyway, hope some of this random information is useful to you. Basically, don't trust the bush, and sometimes there are walls where they don't appear to be. And with that, I bid you adieu.